Hey guys, Jesse from Fulla Strength and Conditioning here. Just doing a quick Q&A this Monday. So I put a question out on my personal Facebook, just asking people what their biggest challenge or struggle is within attaining health and fitness goals. So basically, I just wanted to find out what the main thing is that you struggle with, so I can help you get closer to where you want to be. So I'll just go through them one at a time. I've got a few questions come through. So if you are watching and you have a question you'd like to ask yourself, comment below and give us a shout out and I can answer your question as you go. So number one question is from James. So the biggest thing James is having trouble with is putting on mass. Myself, this is something I've struggled with on a personal level as well. I'm sort of an ectomorph. That's one of the body shapes. So we have ectomorph, which is typically a thin build, finding it hard to put on any sort of weight at all. Mesomorph, which is sort of your medium build, find it easy to put on either muscle and or fat. And then we have an endomorph, which is sort of a bigger or pear-shaped style person. They find it easy to put on fat, but struggle to put on muscle. So myself, I'm a bit of an ectomorph. I've struggled with putting on mass in the past. One of the things that's helped me specifically for that is milk. So within saying milk, it's not related to fat loss. The goal here, or what James has asked that he's struggling with, is putting on mass. So the term mass is both muscle and or fat. Okay, so one of the things that I found helped me, James, is drinking milk. Just increase the quantity of milk. You can put things like Milo or Nesquik in there, especially after training. Fantastic post-workout. Get some extra calories in your diet, extra protein, extra fats through the milk as well. If you can increase your milk intake through the day, you'll find that'll increase your overall calorie intake and help you put on some mass. Okay, so that's one of the things that's personally worked for me and has been around for a long time. It's a very cost-effective method as well to put on some kilos, increase your milk intake. And like I said, post-workout, having something like Nesquik or Milo that doesn't hurt as well if you are of that ectomorph build. So that's James' question. Next, we have a question from Danny, or the biggest thing he's struggling with is injuries. So I'm actually in the process of writing a full detailed article on this topic. I know Danny, he's one of my teammates I play soccer with. Basically, there's a lot of ways you can prevent or reduce the risk of injury. Okay, one of the biggest ways you can do that is by increasing your strength. Okay, the reason I say that is because everything is easier when you're stronger. Okay, what that does, how that relates to injuries is, if you're not very strong, your muscles they've only got a very small capacity to contract, so to complete a given task, and their endurance is going to be a lot less. So if you think of a ceiling, this is sort of down the bottom here is your zero, and up the top here is your maximum capacity. That's a very small window. It's a very small ceiling. If you're working at sort of 50%, the gap's quite small. If you can increase your ceiling via strength training, you're going to have a much bigger gap in between your 0 and your 100. So how that sort of affects injuries is, to do the same task, if you're stronger, you have to you do less work basically. If you're stronger, every single task you do will be easier. Okay, so it means the muscles, the joints, the ligaments are under less stress, and therefore reducing your risk of injury. Okay, it also means you can get yourself into more advantageous positions if it's a sport. If it's, say, a team sport, you can get yourself into better positions and you'll have less chance of contact as well with opposition players and or teammates. So if you're stronger, you can get into better positions because you've got the ability to get there, and your muscles have a higher tolerance for work. You've got a capacity to do more with less energy, basically. So that's a fantastic way we can reduce injuries, increase your strength. Another thing we can do is incorporate things like soft tissue work, so self-myofascial release, things like foam rolling, using a lacrosse ball. If flexibility is an issue, a lot of people think it's flexibility. Oftentimes it's tissue quality, so the actual tone of the muscle. The length of the muscle mightn't be an issue. but it might be stiff. It might not be extensible. It might not be very pliable. The best way I can sort of give you a description of this is if you think of a lucky band or a power band, something like that. It can be stretched multi-directional. So basically, it can be moved up, down, diagonally. If the muscle is very stiff, the length might be the same, but it doesn't have that same extensibility to be moved up, down, forwards, backwards, left to right, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's a way you can try and reduce your risk of injury, Danny. Nikki, her biggest challenge, other people not understanding what it takes. So things like saying, just have one, or you can't be good all the time. So I think that's, she's describing a little bit of maybe peer pressure, things like that in social situations. My response to that is the average person doesn't know what it takes to get good results. And this isn't my opinion, this is a fact. The facts are these: 63% or more Australians are either overweight or obese. So it's nearly 2/3 of the country is either overweight or obese. So it could be, it's obviously a combination of things: reduced exercise or activity levels, poor nutrition practices, stress levels, recovery, metabolism, a whole host of things can go into that. But when people just say, here, just have one, for me, it's a few things. It's jealousy for one, people not wanting you to get to a higher level, and that person or those people wanting you to stay on par with them, and rather than sort of you going from sort of your current level to where you are to increasing your physical capacity and getting further away from them. So maybe they have some issues themselves. They might be self-conscious of their body and they don't want to see you progress. It sounds terrible, but unfortunately people from time to time get into those mind states. They don't want to see you succeed. Okay, so you might have things where people are going to try and sabotage you and say, here, just have one. It might be something that is a bit of a trigger for you. Maybe it's chocolate, which we'll get to in a second. Maybe it's something that is a bit of a vice for you that you struggle with reducing or cutting out to get to your goals, and that person's just saying, here, just have one, or just have a little bit. I think that's a little bit of jealousy, and unfortunately you may have to have a word with that person and just say, look, you're actually not really helping me towards my goals, and oftentimes it could lead to things like not seeing that person in that setting, possibly. And people saying you can't be good all the time, well, I disagree. You can be good all the time. It just means a lot of discipline. It's not to say that's the only way to get results, but you definitely can. It just means it's going to be a lot of diligent hard work and a lot of focus more than anything. You really got to be focused and zeroed in on your goal, what it is. It can be done. It's just a lot of mental fortitude. Okay, so that's Nikki's question there. A question from Yelena: staying in control of the way I eat most of the time. So I like the way she's worded it. Staying in control of what I eat most of the time, and that's the main key. We're not looking for everybody to be perfect. It's not going to happen. The aim is just to get better, or to do something more improved than you did yesterday, last week, or the week before. Okay, so it's about constant improvement. Try not to aim for perfect, just aim for better. So staying in control of what you eat most of the time, there's a number of ways you can accomplish this. So this can be done via meal preparation and making sure you have the foods that you want and need prepared in advance. So for example, say you've just finished a 9 to 5 shift, you come home, you're exhausted, the last thing you want to do is get in the kitchen and start cooking a meal. The way you can avoid snacking and binging on things that maybe you shouldn't is by having those meals prepared. You can then go into your fridge or freezer, get that meal out and eat that before you make potentially an average decision. Okay, so meal preparation is a big one. The other one is just to focus on the big areas. So if there's something specifically that you struggle with on a regular basis, really zero in on that and try and focus on it. So say it's wine, for example. Say you've currently been having 3 glasses of wine each night. Just try and aim for 2. So that's still aiming for better. You're still doing better than 3. 2 is less than 3, And if your goal is to improve performance or improve your body composition, so how your body actually looks, then that's a step in the right direction. So once again, not aiming for perfect, just aiming for better. Who have we got next? Scott, his biggest issue is time. This is a very, very common one. Time. This comes down a lot to preparation of the day. So actually scheduling your day and planning your day. There's obviously going to be things that are out of your control. Things like potentially work. If you work a 9-to-5 job, if it's steady, you know that you're at work for that period of time. That can't be changed unless you're willing to sacrifice or change your job, or maybe ask your boss to change hours. The work situation doesn't really change. The only thing that you could do then, if you're struggling to fit time in for exercise, would be to train either before work or after work. This really depends on who you are and how determined you are to get out of bed or stay out of bed, pretty much. For this one, for me, I know I would probably get up early and do it. After a long day of work, the last thing I really want to do is go and exercise. So for me, I might have to get up an extra hour, 45 minutes early and go and get a training session in. Okay, it might not be ideal, but if that's what needs to be done, if work situation can't be changed, then the next thing is to look at the wake up time or the bedtime. Okay, still ensuring that you get between 6 to 9 hours sleep, depending on your body and how you respond with sleep. Okay, so that's a tough one, but something's got to give. You have to sacrifice time at some point during the day. If you can't be squeezed in, even maybe possibly during a lunchtime period, then you'd be looking at before work or after work, Scott. Jay has her work hours and love of delicious chocolate. Fantastic. So once again, this is a bit of a common one. A lot of people enjoy a chocolate, and once again, just going back to what I've said before, and it's something that I truly think works well, is aiming for better, not perfect. For example, let's say it's a chocolate bar, say it's a Mars bar, big one. A progression from, instead of eating a full Mars bar each time, would be to have half. Have half each day, and that way you've reduced half the amount of chocolate that you're having each day. If you can't just stick to a half, if say you cut it in half, you eat one, you put it away, and then 20 minutes you eat the other half, I would say don't buy it. If, however, you can't restrict yourself from buying the chocolate, then I would say maybe go and consult with a colleague at work or someone nearby who you associate with on a regular basis and tell them to take it off you. Or to say, if you see me with chocolate bar, take it off me, or say you can only have X amount, which would be on the lower side of what you're currently having. So once again, still progress, not perfection. Jenny, her struggle is getting out of bed early in winter when it's cold. I feel your pain, Jen. Obviously, we had the morning session just this morning, 6:15 start, and it is getting colder and colder. So one of the things that we need to try and do is ensure, once again, we're getting adequate sleep. So if you are getting to bed after 10 p.m, you need to get to bed earlier. So one of the things we struggle with is obviously the effect of feeling tired and also the cold. So the way we can combat that with the sleep is to get to bed earlier. You'll still ensure you get that 6 to 9 hour period where you're rested, and also to maybe go to bed with an extra layer on, or to have a heater on as you get up out of bed. So that way, or have a shower straight away. As soon as you get out of bed, that's what I do. I get out of bed and I go straight to the shower, go and have a nice hot shower, warm up, and then you can start the day rather than sort of feeling that cold straight out of the bat. Okay, straight out of bed. Peter, so he's struggling getting back into a routine after illness or injury. So once again, this is a bit of a common one. The cold and the flu are starting to make their way around, the man flu especially. It is a serious thing. Ladies, don't judge us men. It does hit us pretty hard. So struggling to get back into routine after illness or injury. I've written an article about this topic, specifically about illness. My personal recommendation is, if you're sick and you know you're sick and you feel like crap, don't exercise. The reason I say this is because your immune system's already been compromised. It's fighting an infection, and the last thing you want to do is have that immune system work even harder just to try and get you through a bout of exercise. Okay, if it's your common, I've got the sniffles and runny nose, things like that, you may be able to push through. But if it's something more heavy, like a full weights training session or a sporting session with a team, then my advice would be to give that training session a miss until you're back up above 90%. Okay, so there's no point training through that pretty ordinary time when you're sick. Just wait for yourself to get above 90% and then gradually bring yourself back in to full intensity and duration. Okay. With regards to injury, I just want to touch on this one very quickly. I touched on it earlier with Danny's question, or his struggle rather. Do not train through injuries. I repeat, do not train through injuries. You can always train around an injury, but you should never train through it. All that's going to do is take you longer to recover from the initial injury. So your period of being away from your sport or activity or exercise is going to be prolonged, and it's going to mean a longer rehab time or a longer recovery time. So you've got a slight niggle or strain, something like that, get it seen to. Go and see a physio, go and see a chiropractor, go and see your healthcare professional, get it assessed, and then take the treatment or that care plan from that point in time. Okay. With injury, one of the things, or one of the last things, especially if it's a severe injury, to come back is sort of the mental state. The body may possibly be able to, or be back at full function, but the mind and the brain might be there, and it might be quite cautious in sort of going back into that activity at 100%. So that does take a bit of time to recover. If that's the case with you, then you need to give it time. It's just a matter of repetition, getting back into your sport or activity and doing drills at a lower intensity and just getting that repetition. So it's telling the body that doing that task is okay. Okay, it's not a threat. It's at a low level. Get some repetition in it where your brain and the central nervous system can actually tell it that it's not a threat, and then you can restart that technique or that drill at a higher intensity once you're back to 100%. So that's yours, Peter. Try and get back into routine after illness and injury. I'd say use a common sense approach. If it hurts, don't do it. It's a pretty good guide. And with injury, with illness, sorry, if you feel like you can't operate at the level you need to, then you probably shouldn't be training. Okay. That's it, guys. Got through a few questions there. We got through what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 questions. I really hope that's covered something relevant to you and your goals. If you have any questions, guys, we'd love to hear from you. Comment below if you are watching the live video. We thank you and we hope you've benefited from it. If you're watching the replay and we covered something, we hope it did. If you have something we didn't cover, comment below and we can either do another video, we can comment and respond to you, or we can do an article if it needs a full in-depth explanation. Okay, that's it, guys. Thank you for watching. This is Jesse from Fulla Strength and Conditioning. Until next time, have a good night. Bye-bye.